The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening, everybody. This is Danny Bobrow, President of AIM Dental Marketing, welcoming you to this installment of the Practice Perfection Web-Based Education Series. Today's presentation is entitled Master the Art of First Impressions, and will be delivered by yours truly. Before we get to today's presentation, let me share the usual housekeeping items with you. The webcast will run for 90 minutes. While you are in listen-only mode, I invite you to submit your questions and comments by using the question button on your screen. We will allow time following the presentation to get your questions answered. I am joined today by Virginia Norton, who will be fielding your questions. If we do not get to your question during the webcast, I promise to answer them personally as soon after the webcast as possible. We will be leaving for the American Academy for Oral Systemic Health's 4th annual scientific session in a couple of days, so it may not be until next week that you hear from us, but hear from us you will. Attendance at this presentation entitles you to receive 1.5 hours of continuing education credit. Shortly following the webcast, you will be emailed a brief evaluation form. You will then have 15 days to complete and return the form to us. Please note that as we are now responsible for submitting to the AGD's PACE program proof of attendance within 30 days of the presentation, we've shortened the required submission deadline to allow us enough time to get the attendance roster to the AGD within their required time frame. Rest assured the evaluation is short and simple, and you will have plenty of time to get it back to us. And now the mandatory disclaimer. Participants are cautioned about the dangers of incorporating techniques and procedures into their practices if the course has not provided them with adequate clinical experience to allow them to perform it competently. With that, let's get started. And I want to start by talking about focus, and focus in the context of communicating, especially with people who are not yet a part of your practice. And really, one way to do that, and in fact, to communicate with everybody, it's very important that you have a very clear sense of who you are, what you do, for whom you do it, and why. This is variously called a positioning statement or a mission, vision, values statement. And to me, it's sort of your North Star, your sextant, that reminds you why you exist, what's special about your practice. And that is really an important driving force behind effective communication, especially when you're talking about communicating with, as I said, either prospective patients or prospective additions to your professional referral network. And so both by way of example and so that you perhaps have a better idea of where Danny Bobrow, AIM Dental Marketing, and the Art of First Impressions is coming from, I want to share with you what I think is a fairly succinct vision statement that was gleaned and distilled over several years, actually. And here it is. ADM is committed to improving and preserving the health of the people of the United States, primarily by working with private practice dentists who share this vision. And I just add parenthetically that the United States is our primary target audience. I know that many people are dialing in, listening in today from overseas and Canada and Mexico. And this is in no way intended as a slight. It's just when we focus, when we consider who our primary target audience is for most of the services that we deliver, it just happens to be the people of the United States, which is a fairly broad market in any case. As dental offices, your target geographically will probably be considerably smaller than that. So again, it's about focus. And the other thing about the vision statement, which has really, I think, gone a long way to driving us and giving us more passion, is that we realized fairly recently, more recently than I wish, that this is really what we're in business to do. We weren't in business to make more money. We weren't in business to make more money for our clients. Ultimately, the goal is to show our clients and help our clients to do well by doing good. And that was a very nice revelation for us, because now we realize the big picture, which is helping our clients to better connect so that they can help more people to attain and maintain optimal oral and overall health. Our mission is basically that we support our clients' visions, and clients who share our mission, our vision. We offer proven cost-effective tactics for connecting with prospective and current patients and growing their professional collaboration network. And our values include charity, accountability, health and fitness, compassion, and a commitment to results and success. What we do with all this is come up with a tagline. A tagline is a distillation of your positioning statement. Many of you have a tagline. I think maybe more of you don't. And when we get into how to effectively connect with first-time callers, or to remind your loyal patients and referral sources who you are, it's nice to have that distilled into a tagline that means something. And by way of introducing our tagline, these are the various pillars of support, as I like to call them, one of which, of course, is our oral systemic practice focus, which I've already shared and I think is clear to most people who subscribe to this webcast. And the second pillar is this webcast. We don't charge for this. We do this as a service. It certainly helps us make connections, and it is sort of a rising tide that lifts all boats. We also are very big on the philanthropic side, and we have a foundation that is supported by both the Smile Tree and the Climb for a Cause entities. In fact, we just returned from our 17th annual Climb for a Cause last week. We also offer a health coaching curriculum or methodology so that we can help our clients do as much as they want to help basically support their patients into achieving optimal health. And nutrition is obviously and often a large part of that. And that's why we offer a certified health coaching and personal training program, as well as a means to help practices lead by example if they wish. AIM Dental Marketing is sort of the get the phone to ring services. We've been in business for 25 years. But in the process of getting the phone to ring, we would listen and evaluate the calls, and it became abundantly clear that most practices would benefit greatly from a curriculum presenting to them the ways to more effectively connect, so that the investment they make in getting the phone to ring yields a higher return by converting more of those phone calls in solid patient appointments. And that really was the genesis of the art of first impressions. And with that, I will present our tagline to you, which is thank you for calling AIM Dental Marketing, where we make the connection. This is Danny. How may I help you? You will soon see this is that this is part of the TAFI Introduction, as I like to call it. And we very much practice what we preach. We're not perfect either, but we also record our own calls so that we can evaluate and learn to be committed. We're committed to constant and never-ending improvement, as I know all of you are. In terms of what we're going to cover today, we will talk about setting your stage for success and all that entails. What actually are the components of effective communication? And what will flow from that is what we call the visual gap and the need to minimize that. The idea of avoiding the self-fulfilling prophecy trap, which I think many practices inadvertently fall into, which limits their capacity to connect with people more than they currently do. We'll also talk about avoiding negatively charged and working positively charged words and phrases into your vocabulary. What I like to think of as the emotional foundation of effective communication, and that is empathy, rapport, and enthusiasm. We will then briefly present the art and science of questioning as well as listening, and all of these are the building blocks that lead to agreement with the caller. And by agreement, we mean the caller recognizing that you offer something of value and them agreeing to follow your first treatment recommendation, which is for them to visit your office. But first, There are some assumptions that many people who come to the coaching harbor. They either state them or, more challenging to address when they're unstated. And I will say that the fact that you're on this call means that to some extent I'm already preaching to the converted, and so I will not spend a lot of time on this. As is sad but true, as is often the case, the people that would benefit the most from coaching of this sort are probably not on the call because they don't know what they don't know. So the assumptions that we make are that your team and you are enthusiastic about mastering the art of first impressions, that you see the value in this and it's not something that you don't get or don't want. Clearly you care deeply about delivering the very highest level of care to your patients and the community at large. That's the passion I spoke of earlier, and that everybody who is in danger of answering your telephone is likewise passionate about the promise your procedures, protocols, modalities, and practice philosophy offer to help people attain and maintain a higher level of oral and overall health. The sad reality, and this is quoted from Dr. Tom Oren, you may know from the insider circle, but you call any dental practice and pretend to be a patient, 99% of them will do little more than take information. It's sort of like a game of roulette. That's getting better. The number of practices that recognize the importance of a formalized, if not rigorous, training on connecting with callers is increasing all the time. And that's very gratifying. So let's set the stage for success. Now, here are some concerns that we hear from members about call handling, and as I'd mentioned, at least as often we don't hear them, and that's the real challenge. And this is in no particular order. I'm a perfectionist. I wasn't hired to do this. It's not my personality. I don't think it's necessary. I'm too busy to bother with this. I hate reading off a script. The callers are low quality anyway. And then what we often hear is, but our patients love us once they meet us. And that's no doubt true. Just quickly to look at each of these, people who are perfectionists are of the mindset that if I can't do it perfectly, I don't want to do it. And what they fail to realize is that the learning is in the doing. If you're trying to improve your golf game, you have to try a new stroke, you have to trust a coach, and your game will probably get worse initially. But your long-term prognosis is much greater because you're working on something. It may not be comfortable, but in the long run, it's going to be better. People feel that speaking in a way other than comes immediately naturally to them is not their personality. It's not honest. We're not trying to change anybody's personality. What we're committed to doing is providing you with the skills, the tools, the distinctions so that your true personality shines through on the telephone, because people are meeting you. They may just not be meeting you yet in person, but they're meeting you on the phone. Whether you were hired or not to do this, it's a dynamic world. Things change, and this is really a great opportunity to make you more indispensable to your audience. To make me indispensable to you, but to make you indispensable to your employer, and as well as to your patients by doing a better job of communicating the benefits of your practice to them. Reading off a script, people, they either think they can get a script that's a magic bullet or they don't like reading off one, and I understand that, and we'll get into that a little bit more soon. We have no illusions that you're busy, and in fact, the tools that we provide are to help make you more efficient so that you can be more effective on the phone and simplify your life, not complicate it. People who feel it's not necessary are just not informed, because it's really a matter of not knowing the lost opportunity of not having connected with somebody. How do you measure the foregone assistance that you can render to a patient, or the production that your practice can generate from not bringing in somebody? There actually is a way to do that, and we'll talk about it briefly shortly. And when we talk about the self-fulfilling prophecy, we'll also address the concern sometimes that, well, these callers that we're getting are low quality anyway. So stay tuned for all of that. We already kind of talked about the question about it not being my personality. We want your personality. We don't want you wearing a mask. The goal is to have your personality shine through loud and clear. People feel they weren't hired to do it. As I mentioned, that may be true. With hope you're flexible and open to learning and acquiring a new skill, just as you would if you were going to a soft tissue laser seminar. It's no less important than that. I think the most valuable instrument in your office is probably your telephone, because when that phone stops ringing, everybody's in trouble. You can get a laser repaired anytime, although that's not cheap either. So sometimes we have people say, just give me the script. I want to know how to deal with the price shopper or the person asking about insurance benefits. And just as often we get the request that people don't want the script because they don't want to read off it. But in either case, handing somebody a script before we've set up the stage for success, the emotional undergirding that we will talk about, is very much like putting the cart before the horse, or building the fourth story of your structure before you've laid the foundation. It just won't work. Well, let's talk a little bit more about what this reading off a script means. Some of you might recognize these phrases. I'm going to make him an offer he can't refuse. You don't understand. I could have had class. I could have been a contender. You can read the rest of them. Go ahead, make my day. These are all, in fact, these are some of the top movie quotes according to Wikipedia. Well, guess what, folks? These are all a script. A screenwriter handed an actor a screenplay and said, learn this. And they learned it. They got what's called off book, which means they didn't have to think about the words anymore, so that they could then infuse them with their persona. And you know, when you're talking about acting, they get paid big bucks because it's not easy. They're not just letting their personality come through. In fact, the truly great actors are so versatile, you don't know who they are. You know, when it comes to connecting with telephone callers, we're just asking you to exude your personality in an effective way. So it's really quite a bit simpler than this. And if you don't like the term script, consider checklist or even roadmap. That's kind of how I viewed it. Once I memorized the key phrases that I know what to say and in what order to say them, then you can kind of go for a joyride. As long as you're under control, the shortest distance between 2 points need not be a straight line. And when we get into questioning and listening, you'll see that that little side trips are par for the course. They're fine. I don't encourage people to get off the phone fast like some coaches do. I think that's time well spent if it means connecting with the caller. Again, as long as you're in control, you're managing the call effectively. And just a quick summary of the benefits, why they're so important for you. Essentially, when someone calls you for the first time, it's like a first date. And as we all remember, on a first date, we're always on our best behavior. And we pay attention, we listen attentively, we have good posture and eye contact, and it's very similar. This is basically the patient's first date with the office. It's their first impression of the office, which is why we call it the art of first impressions. But this first impression will actually set the tone for your relationship with them. And when we talk about the TAFI Introduction, which is the beginning of the phone call, you'll see that that actually sets the tone for the rest of the conversation, which is why it's so vitally important that that be done correctly. Otherwise, essentially, we dig a hole for ourselves when we don't practice the beginning of, when we don't pay attention to the beginning of the call and execute it effectively. And for those reasons, it truly is your best marketing tool, because it will actually lead to converting more. As I mentioned earlier, if you're paying money to get your phone to ring, it only makes sense to get as many of those calls into your office as possible. That can only enhance the return on investment. And this gets to the point about when, you know, I said one of the concerns people state is that they're too busy. This mastery of this curriculum of the art of first impressions actually reduces confusion and therefore stress, because you have a plan, you have a method for handling just about any call that you receive. And that is a great way to relieve stress. When you have a plan, you don't have to stress it. And obviously it instills a perception of quality. This gets back to the first impression of your practice, and it really is part of your branding strategy. How you handle the initial contact is going to either impress people favorably, neutrally, or unfavorably. And the goal is always to exceed expectations. And fortunately, these days, that's not that difficult with the current state of proficiency in handling calls, certainly in the healthcare field. There was a book put out by the Zunins called The First 4 Minutes, which talked about a practical approach to meeting the right person. The irony is that people's attention span and judgment window, I think, is just shortening all the time, especially online and when people call. I think that you may have 30 seconds to connect with someone, and that might even be a bit long. I suspect that depending on how the phone call is handled, that the first 5 to 10 seconds can make or break the call. We talked about it being the best marketing tool, and if you just do a little bit of math, some practices are engaged in external marketing or controlling the rate at which people call, and some don't. And if you just make certain assumptions that if you're not doing external marketing, if you're just waiting for word of mouth to generate referrals, you're maybe getting, let's just say, 5 patients. If you're doing external marketing, maybe you're getting 5 phone calls. These are just numbers that I picked out. But obviously, if you're investing in marketing, you're getting more phone calls. At least you better be. And actually, our previous presenter, Bill Rossi, actually 2 presenters ago, Alexander Sleepak spoke last month, but he did an analysis with the University of Minnesota, and they came up with a calculation that the average lifetime value of a patient, and this is 12 years ago, was $4,800. And you can see, basically, this is what I talked about before. You could say, well, I didn't convert that caller to an appointment, so it cost me $100 because I know how much I spend on marketing and I know how many calls I got. So you divide your cost by the number of calls, and that gives you your average cost per call. But the real story is behind that. It's what would you have gotten had this person come in? And it's reasonable to assume they would be an average patient by definition. Average is average. So a conservative value of the lifetime value of a calculation of the lifetime value of a patient is close to $5,000. That's the marketing math. That's why if you can just improve the percentage of callers that you're converting to solid appointments by just a couple percent, maybe 1 appointment a month, that's $60,000 a year on a lifetime value basis. That's pretty big money for a very small investment of time and, I think, effort. Well, let's consider which describes your practice environment, the picture on the left or the picture on the right. Now, busy doesn't have to mean chaotic and polluted, of course, but practice environment will go a long way towards your team's ability to effectively connect with, especially with first-time telephone callers. And, you know, if it's Grand Central Station at the front desk and your poor front office person is trying to check in and dismiss a patient while handling a prospective patient call with a handset in their hand and a pad of paper, you can imagine that poses quite a challenge. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how to set up the environment to set your stage for success. And bearing in mind, as I've already touched upon, that environment also is internal. It's the mental environment, the mind state, the comfort level, the stress level. If those are out of whack, again, don't expect to do a great job with converting calls to patient appointments. But as I said, setting the stage for success also depends largely on your equipment, and that would include your telephone system, your outgoing messages, that is, in other words, what people hear when you can't answer the phone, and on-hold messages, which is what people hear when you're placing them on hold. And of course, sometimes we get so close to our business that we don't even know how we're being perceived. I often just remind doctors who, for the past 15 years, have entered their office through the back door that they walk through the front door, and they drive to the front, just to remind them about what the patient's perspective and perceptions are. And in like fashion, it's important to know what's going on with every touch point. What does your outgoing message say? You certainly want to make sure it references your website, and ideally the website has a form to accept appointment requests or other inquiries that immediately generate an email to you, as well as obviously provide them with the instructions for how to get a hold of you if this is an emergency. And you also want to know what your on-hold message says, if you have an on-hold message. Many of you don't. We'll talk about that shortly, and I hope to get you at least thinking about acquiring one, because it's actually, I think, an indispensable part of the process of converting new callers into new patients. But you want to make sure it's current if you have it. And make sure that you and your team know about the website, because people will be calling off of your website. And if you have a special offer, or if you have something that's out of date, that is can lead to a disconnect, or at best missing an opportunity to demonstrate your office and your practice as being professional and well organized. So you definitely want to check your equipment, see if it's up to the task. How many lines do you have? The phone company will do an analysis just to see how many busy signals the callers get, how many times calls get switched to voicemail. Do you have enough lines? If people are repeatedly getting busy signals or getting bounced to voicemail, that may be something to take a look at. Now, I'm on a cordless headset right now, and I have not used a handset, and I kid you not, folks, since 1989. I feel sorry for people when I watch them. I actually get uncomfortable myself when I watch a poor receptionist cradling a handset between her ear and shoulder, trying to work with a computer. Forget about the physical pain and the long-term damage that's probably doing. The other damage it does is it keeps the team member chained to the desk, and it makes it very difficult for that person to retreat to a quiet area when they get a call from that prospective patient, and it makes it difficult to give that caller your undivided attention. And again, that just means a lower percentage of converted calls. And that's why I like to say headsets equal freedom. We can provide you with some very cost-effective resources. We don't sell the headsets, but we have some people that we're very confident referring to. Among them, Mallory headsets, Hello Direct, and Plantronics. And there's a headset for every configuration and coif you might have. I don't have to worry about my hair being messed up. I have a Bill Blatchford haircut. We have nice heads of bone, basically. But for people that have hair, they can do the side clip, the ear clip headset. There's a learning curve with this. I've had people complain that they can't hear through it, and they've even said it's given them infections. And I don't see how that can be, because it doesn't really go into your ear. But I think the bottom line is that it's just like if older people that get a hearing aid, the first time they try to listen to it, they say, I can't hear through this. Well, that's because it's a new experience, and it may well need to be calibrated. And those three companies I mentioned are very good at doing that. If you're not satisfied with how you're being heard or how you hear through the headset, call the company on the headset, and they'll work you through the calibration process to optimize it for your telephone system. Now, your outgoing message, again, is what people hear when they don't reach you. And I remind you that that's the first impression, or they don't always wait. People will call. If they don't get you, they get your outgoing message. That's going to have to serve as your first impression. So I think it makes sense to take a little time to evaluate how you're being perceived when people don't reach you. And some general recommendations is that it should never ring more than 4 times before going to voicemail. And I really recommend that the phone ring 3 times during office hours, and the team try to pick it up by then. And if you're not able to do that, there may be another issue with staffing or something to look at. Now, most systems are sophisticated enough so that when the office is closed, you can set it to ring 0 times. And if you think about it, that's really something to do. If somebody's calling and you're not there, and you know you're not going to answer the phone, why should they have to wait for it to ring? The fact that it picks up right away is just one more subtle, maybe, seemingly insignificant, but every touch point where you're exceeding their expectation, like, wow, that picked up right away, that speaks positively for you. It also recognizes the reality that sometimes people are just mustering the gumption or the courage to call, and all they need is for that phone to ring a few times to tell their wife, well, I tried to call, honey, and they weren't there. So the other thing is that with cell phones, you never know when someone's going to get a bad cell, and they could lose you. So for that reason and more, if you can get your phone to go ring 0 times when you're not going to answer it, so much the better. I strongly recommend that you avoid reference to your office hours. Even though just about every outgoing message I listen to says that, I really think it's sort of a vestige or a holdover from the first messages, which were probably retail establishments like pizzerias and dry cleaners, for whom, yes, it is nice to know their hours because they deal with walk-in traffic. Now, I did coach a team today that actually has a lot of walk-in traffic, and I was reminded of that because we had to foreshorten our coaching session because a patient walked in. But in the overwhelming majority of cases, you work by appointment, right? And so I would say that unless you have really killer hours, like 24/7, it's probably not a benefit. And if anything, it gives the caller one less reason to leave a message because maybe they just wanted to know your hours. But they're going to need to call you to make an appointment anyway. And if your hours aren't as great as the next call, office day call, you may not have a second chance. Besides, anything that doesn't add detracts. People are busy, and the shorter you can make the message, the better. I'm really of a mindset now that your outgoing message shouldn't be more than 20 or 25 seconds in length. It should just let them know who they called, that you're sorry you missed the call, and that they're welcome to leave a confidential message of any length, and maybe make reference to your website, or that if they're in any kind of discomfort, you're concerned, and invite them to call you or to follow whatever protocol you wish. Make sure that whoever records the outgoing message is enthusiastic. Again, this is the first impression that the caller is experiencing of your office. You just may not be talking to them when you record the message. And if you have an answering service, that makes me nervous. Make sure you check it often. Even the good ones tend to deteriorate over time. I think they reach their own level of incompetency because when they're good, word travels, they get a lot of customers, and then it just makes it difficult for them to handle the call. But I've had some really amazing experiences with answering services where I called to try to leave a message for the client, in my case, and the answering service said, is this an emergency? I said, no, I'm just trying to leave a message. Well, this has to be an emergency. I said, well, I actually, I work for the practice. They said, well, is this an emergency? I said, no, but I'm a consultant on how phone calls are being handled by the office. And the answering service hung up on me at that point. So that's sort of a poignant example that I thought I'd share with you. So be sure that whoever they are understand your protocol and that you check from time to time to make sure that they're practicing it. So speaking of that, let's take a listen to this.
Thank you for calling the dental office. The office is open Monday through Thursday at 8 a.m. and every other Friday or Saturday at 10 a.m. If you have an extreme emergency or reach Dr. For all other messages, please leave them at the sound of the beep. Thank you.
All righty, that wasn't so good, was it? We don't have the opportunity to get your feedback, but essentially the caller's tone was low, almost foreboding, and his tagline was, "Thank you for calling the dental office." It doesn't get much more generic than that, does it? And the other thing about it is that it almost sounded like he was discouraging people from leaving a message or from contacting him. It was almost as though this had better be a dire emergency if you even think about calling me. And I don't think that's the feeling that we want to convey ever. So I don't think that the good doctor got a good score for empathy, rapport, or enthusiasm. During office hours, and here's an example. Hello and thank you for calling our dental office, where we're creating confident smiles or improving the health of our community one patient at a time. That's your tagline. And apologize, we cannot take your call at the moment. Please leave your name, telephone number, so we can return your call and give you the attention you deserve. Thanks again for calling, and make it a wonderful day. That's about 20 seconds. And I don't know, I think we pretty much covered it, don't you? And remember the value of coming up with a tagline. It's a distillation, it's an encapsulation of who you are, what you do, for whom you do it, and why. And it's a great reminder for your team. Every time they answer the call, they're reminded about who you are and why you're there. Now, on-hold messages is, just to be clear, that's what people hear when you do connect with them and you place them on hold. And there are obvious things that people can experience. They can hear silence, they can hear a radio station, music, or you can control the message by periodically recording and updating a professional script which reminds people not only of your professionalism, but that you're a connected and vital member of the community. And I think that as dental offices, that's a really good thing to do. Because as you all know, most people associate pain and discomfort in most cases with the dental office. It's changing, but you know, people aren't thinking happy thoughts. And I think every opportunity to remind them that, well, we're not a dental office, we're a group of people that go to the same grocery store as you do, support the same Little League teams, are committed to philanthropy and giving back, and you know, we give birth and we acquire skills and are here to help. I think that's what you really want to be able to remind people of. And the reality is that every office places callers on hold. If you don't, you might be overstaffed for that matter. But in any case, you'll see why placing callers on hold can actually be a good thing when we're talking about new patients. But it's been proven, I've proven it myself, that an on-hold message lessens perceived hold time. In other words, you can confidently leave a caller on hold, assuming you've gotten permission to do so. You can leave them on hold for up to 60 seconds, because to them it's going to seem like 30 seconds. And that's often valuable time to allow the team member to compose him or herself, get to a quiet area, and give this caller their undivided attention, which is really a key to successfully converting them to an appointment. As I mentioned, with today's technology, and we offer an on-hold message subscription service, you can keep it very current very easily. And we recommend that you update it quarterly or even semi-annually or even quarterly, 4 times a year. Even if it's just changing the background music. We have a number of clients that just cycle through Vivaldi's 4 Seasons so that when people call, they hear something different. But most of them will also take the time to update it to talk about something that's going on that suggests their connection with the community. If you have an on-hold message, take a listen to it, especially if you haven't updated in a while. I called a practice last year that was saying that they were proud that 2009 marked 15 years serving the Westchester community. Well, it was 2013, so it was time to update their message. And just as with your answering service, call yourself, not only to confirm function, but to remind you what it says. Because people, if you place them on hold, they're going to say, wow, I didn't know that, that you're offering CEREC. And if somebody who answers the phone doesn't know that you just started offering CEREC, that could be an embarrassment. Most likely they would know that. But the point is just know what you're saying on your on-hold message. And as I mentioned, it builds a professional image, and it also, this will become more clear as we talk about the TAFI Introduction shortly, it will prepare you to speak with the most important person in the world, at least at that moment, namely your newest patient. I've made reference to the TAFI Introduction. This is a series of statements that we strongly encourage your team members to use on practically every single call they ever receive. I will state the exceptions shortly, but they are few and far between. I will show you the introduction now. We will revisit it periodically because I don't expect you or your team members to take this on faith. Sometimes when somebody wants to improve their tennis game and they get to work with the same, coach that coached the Venus twins or any other great players, sometimes their reputation precedes them, and you can just take it on faith that I'm going to listen to what this gal or guy has to say. But really, at the end of the day, I think people are more likely to embrace change if they understand why it's being requested of them. So that will be my goal today, if nothing else, that you leave here believing that the TAFI Introduction will very quickly and simply help you connect with more callers. First line is, thank you for calling. We practice what we preach. So I would say, thank you for calling AIM Dental Marketing, where we make the connection. This is Danny. How may I help you? Actually, the next question is, hi, I'd like to know how much your marketing is, or if I'm a dental office. Hi, I'd like to know the price of a crown. I'd like to know if you're in my network. I'd like to know why the sky is blue. I'd like to know the meaning of life. I think the point is clear I'm making is I don't care what question they ask you. I want you to answer exactly as follows. I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with, or with whom am I speaking? And then they tell you, and you say, are you in any discomfort presently? And then you use their name. And if they say yes, then you can break. That's the exception. Yes, I am in extreme pain. I need to get in there immediately. You can forget the rest of the introduction. Get them in, obviously. But short of that, the next question is, who may we thank for referring you to us? And then the next question, in almost every case, unless they just say, hi, I'd like to call, I'm ready to make an appointment, I'm in a big hurry, can you get me in the book? If they don't say that, feel free to say, would you mind if I place you on hold for just a moment so I can get to my desk and give you my undivided attention? And then you have their permission to place them on hold, and provided you have a professionally produced and frequently updated on-hold message system, your team member now has the opportunity to clear her mind, get to a quiet area, and in fact give this caller her undivided attention, which is going to make it a lot more likely that they're going to connect and convert. And that's why this is a big takeaway, as they say on the East Coast. We call it takeout here, but I hope the point is made. All right, that's setting the stage for success. We're going to move on to the components of communication now. There's a Professor Albert Moravian who performed a pretty seminal study several years back now in UCLA, where he was commissioned to not just identify the components of communication, but also the percentage that each of these components contributes to effective communication. And what he found is that there's three basic communication components. They are the verbal, vocal, and visual. The visual is the body language. It's the gesture of the hands and facial expression and body language, basically. The vocal is the tone, resonance, and inflection of the words that you choose. And the verbal component is the actual words you choose. And what his study revealed was rather, I think, counterintuitive and rather surprising. The verbal component, the percent that the words you choose contributes to effective communication, is only 7%. The vocal component, basically how you use the words you choose, accounts for 38%. And that leaves the visual component at 55%, more than half. This finding alone goes a long way, I think, to understanding why many people are challenged connecting with first-time telephone callers. They're dealing with less than half a deck. And that's what we call the visual gap. And what we want to do is obviously accentuate the tools we have at our disposal, namely the vocal and verbal components, because we don't have the visual component, because callers cannot see you. Or can they? just a slight twist. They literally can't see you, but as my collaborator in developing this curriculum, Bill Blatchford, shared, he's old enough that when he grew up, they lived on a farm, and his mother had one of those hand-crank telephones. And every day at 4 o'clock, she would make herself up, put on her best Sunday dress, sit in front of the phone to call her friend Alma. And Bill and his brothers would giggle and say, "Mom, Alma can't see you." And she would say, "Oh, yes, they can, children. Oh, yes, she can, children." And the point to be made is that everybody has a mind's eye. And we often will develop a mental image of who we're talking to. And how you use the vocal and verbal components will largely determine the image that the person sees. Let's talk about a all too common occurrence, which is this, what I call the self-fulfilling prophecy trap. And this holds that when we label someone as undesirable, the quality of our communication will change, and it will almost inevitably change for the worse. And sometimes practice this mindset unwittingly. When you have a call tracking sheet and you have different descriptions, and one of them is price shopper, that will feed into the mindset that anybody that's calling to ask a price must be a low-quality individual that we really don't need to waste our time with. And we're going to talk more about that shortly. But I hope that you all see that that really is an example of the self-fulfilling prophecy trap. Because if you label, if your opinion of the person diminishes, the quality of your communication will likewise, and you'll wind up creating the person, you know, in your own image, essentially. Let's have a listen to this.
Debbie, can you please hold? Yeah. Debbie, how can I help you?
Yeah, hi. When you guys get everything to schedule a deep cleaning, do you guys use arrestin?
Have you ever been to our office before?
No, I have not.
Okay. Do we apply arrestin if the patient wants to apply it? We just don't apply stuff. So
No, I mean, no. If I would want it, you guys do that type of treatment?
Okay. I wanted to first of all illustrate a couple of things here, one of which the on-hold message, they have one, but it is unintelligible. They probably, well, I know, they have a cassette tape that's been playing for years, and it's just completely worn out, and nobody has bothered to listen to know that the callers can't even see the on-hold message. So, you know, it's almost better to have silence at that point. This caller's tone was really, I think, illustrative of the need for a little bit more rapport and enthusiasm and empathy. I hope you would agree. Now, she did control the call, didn't she? I mean, the person asked the question, and she said, "Have you been here before?" Well, she did ask the question, and people who ask questions control calls, but, you know, that's an example of where you can kind of win the battle and lose a war. And so it takes more than just asking questions to gain agreement and connect with the caller. And one thing I just wanted to underscore again, which is that externally generated patients do not yet know or trust you. And it doesn't mean they're not good patients. I think all of us can probably relate to this phenomenon. When I'm looking for something to buy that I don't know much about, when I call around, the question I am most likely to ask is, how much does it cost? That doesn't mean that I want the lowest price or that the price is even the primary criterion. It really means I just don't know what else to ask. It's kind of a conversation starter for me. And I would respectfully suggest and request that the next time somebody calls you asking how much something costs, ask yourself if they're not really wanting to ask or to say that, you know, I've never had a lot of good experience with dentists. I'm kind of scared of them, and I haven't been around, and I really think I need help. But What I'm looking for is someone that can convince me that I can trust them, who will deliver value, and will give me a fair shake, because I'm already shaking. That's probably what they would like to articulate, but they don't know you well enough to do that, and that's why they say, how much does a crown cost? Because they're interested in more than the price, and they may well not even be that interested in the price. So the point here is, and this is from, again, I'm citing one of our past Practice Perfection presenters, Bill Rossi of Advanced Practice Management. So I like to play around with what's called an acid test for practice growth, where let's pretend that 2 of your phones ring at the same time, 2 of your lines ring. And on line 1 is Bill. Bill is going to be getting married, and his fiance has, quote, asked him to get his teeth straightened so that they can have some beautiful pictures for the wedding. And his fiance is your patient. At the same time, Mary calls. She just got a mailer and wants to know how much a crown costs. My question to all of you is, who would you rather talk to? And I think that if we're all honest, we'd all probably rather talk to Bill. And the reason is that Bill really doesn't need much by way of convincing. You see, your marketing has already successfully worked its magic on Bill. You've generated a good patient and a great cheerleader in his fiance. He has a need. He wants to satisfy his fiance, doesn't want her to call off the wedding, so he's ready to go. He's what I call low-hanging fruit. It doesn't take a lot of skill to convert that call to an appointment. Mary, on the other hand, is really every bit as valuable. She's just at a different point in her relationship with you. And if I can get everyone excited equally, if not more so, about talking to Mary, because Mary represents the future of your practice, I'll consider my work as done. So that's something to think about. You know, a challenging call represents opportunity. An easy call represents the success of your marketing. That challenging call will get there as long as you have the tools and the mindset to run the race at their pace. I also like to talk about the how are you test. And I can, without wanting to fall into the self-fulfilling prophecy trap myself, or jumping to conclusions, when I call an office and they say, thank you for calling dental office, this is Mary, how may I help you? I say, hi Mary, this is Danny, how are you? If they say, fine, I already know a little bit about the mindset over there. And if they say, I'm fine, Danny, how are you? Well, I know I'm dealing with someone that's already a cut above. And I understand why people say fine. People, until they know who they're talking to, I think are a little bit guarded. It's almost like we don't want to let them into the fort. We don't want to open the gate because, well, I don't know who you are, so why are you being nice to me? You must be trying to manipulate or sell me or take advantage of me in some way. What I would ask and submit is that that's not necessarily the case. And whenever anybody calls me and they say, how are you, I always say, I'm fine, how are you? And it's kind of fun because they're almost always like surprised. You know, they're like, whoa, I'm fine too, thanks for asking. As though they didn't expect to get the reciprocal courtesy from me. So again, this is a really simple way to establish a first impression with somebody. And it doesn't cost you any more to do it like this, does it? Of course not. All right, moving on. Let's talk about negatively charged words and phrases. And by way of illustration, which seminar sounds more appealing to you? Sexual harassment in the workplace and dealing with racism, or this seminar? Men and women as allies and friends and celebrating pluralism. I would imagine that you probably all realize that this is the same seminar. We simply are referring to it differently. You see, for many people, the words sexual, harassment, unfortunately workplace for some people, and dealing with racism are negatively charged words. And what happens when people, these are like emotional punches. People get guarded. They may not even realize that they're being guarded, but it makes it more difficult for them to hear what you have to say because you've already sort of buffeted them emotionally. And most people don't even realize it, which is why we really want to be careful, notwithstanding that according to Dr. Moravian, only 7% of effective communication is the result of your choice of words. Some of these words are really powerful. And it's all part of an equation or part of an accumulation. It's a cumulative effect. So every opportunity to do something right, if you do it right, you're building a case in your favor. And in like fashion, let's really focus on positive words. And there are 3 positive words, and I have to thank Tom Oren for this too, because he shared them, that we should really work into our vocabulary as healthcare professionals. And those are proud, conservative, and concerned. Now, pride is really suggestive of an intense admiration, loyalty, a connection. I mean, when you're proud of your doctor, that is a real story to tell. And I always encourage people, once they have permission and a connection with the caller, to tell a story, obviously a true story. But if you've been employed for 8 years and this is the only dentist that you've been to and they've done Invisalign for you, as a team I visited in Detroit last week shared, that's a great story, and people can identify with that. So why not share it with them, because enthusiasm is contagious. Henry Ford said, I shared that with them when I was in Detroit, nobody ever bought anything without an exchange of enthusiasm. So that's key, and we'll talk more about enthusiasm soon. But the word proud conveys passion for this doctor, this office. And by way of exercise, and adding to your communications, arrows to your communications quiver, as I like to call it, a great exercise is to list and share reasons why you're proud to be a part of your practice. And so much the better if you can weave it into a story, a personal experience that you can share. Conservative is another great word, and again, I don't really care about your political bent. When it comes to healthcare, nobody wants you to play fast and loose. And so conservative always suggests that we're going to go that route first. And we're not going to take any unnecessary risks with your health or your finances, for that matter. If something can be done conservatively, we all would hope that our care providers would explore those options. And concern, just in a word, means you care. And it's especially important in this because people need to be reminded that you're human beings, that you're not just a collection of drills and sharp instruments and medicinal smelling office, which I hope is not the case from your office. But that's what people think of. And so we want to really work with that. Again, a great exercise is to write down so many ways you can answer this question. We show our concern for you by convenient hours, parking, advanced hygiene assessment, oral DNA analysis, nutritional counseling, a commitment to oral systemic health, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You all know it. It's all there. So now it's time to play. You heard it. It's time to play Guess the Charge. And these are rhetorical questions that you can't answer. But basically, how does this make you feel? Is this a positive or a negative? The office can't see you until next Tuesday. I can help you with that. You must submit your own insurance forms. We're delighted you've chosen to call us. Which would you prefer, morning or afternoons for your next visit? We don't do it that way. We appreciate your considering us. Now, by the way, yeah, and in a phrase, is your mindset, is your communication my way or the highway, or yes, we can? And obviously, we hope that it's yes, we can. Every one of these phrases I have heard at least once. And, you know, you can underscore, too, if I said, the office can't see you until next Tuesday. Or I said, I can help you with that. Obviously, it's how you say it that will either enhance or detract from the intended message, which, again, kind of underscores the value, the relative importance of the vocal versus the verbal component. Now we move on to what I consider the emotional foundation or the underpinning of effective communication, and these are empathy, rapport, and enthusiasm. I've talked about them. Let's define them and drill down a little bit deeper. Empathy is the capability to understand another's feelings, to walk in their moccasins, if you will. Rapport is a relation marked by harmony and conformity. It's being together. It just occurred to me, some of you know I'm a climber. The root for rappel is R-A-P-P. It's very similar. And when you rappel, you will go down with two parallel ropes, or you'll simul-rappel somebody by your side. So it's being with somebody, tracking somebody. That's what rapport literally is. And they're both essential because people really don't care how much you know, and you can probably finish this for me, until they know how much you care. It's not the details. Who was it? I can't remember now who said that if we're going to do business together, we can discuss the details later. If we're not going to do business together, the details don't matter. And another phrase that I love from the late, great Maya Angelou is that people may not remember what you say, but they will remember how you make them feel. And if you think about it, people that you maybe not have such a kind recollection of, you know how they made you feel, but you may not at all remember exactly what made you feel that way, what they said. Feelings, they last. So let's give a listen to this.
Dental office, this is Debbie.
Debbie, how you doing?
Good.
Debbie, I just received a brochure
Okay.
with $25 or $39.
Right.
How this works, Debbie? Because I've never, I'm in here basically.
$25 includes 6 X-rays and a complete examination.
And
And $79 bleaching, you have to pay full fee for the full amount of X-rays, the exam, and the cleaning, and then we will honor the coupon for the bleaching at $79.
but how much I have to pay then? $210?
No. You can pick either one coupon or the other coupon. You have to pick which coupon you want to use. You can only use one coupon.
Oh, one coupon.
Okay. I think we've heard enough. The greeting was basically one note in inflection. Dental office, this is Debbie. And again, she kind of wrested control from the caller, didn't she? But how would you score her on rapport and empathy? And the point that I wish to make, though, is that if you're going to do an offer, if you're going to engage in external marketing, be it through internet or direct mail or really any kind of outreach, social media, keep your offer simple. The offer that this office insisted upon was so complex that it really doomed anybody from connecting with a caller who was calling about it. And remember, as Dick Barnes said, those of you old enough to remember Dick Barnes, confused people don't buy. And you owe it to your team. Just make your offer simple. I recommend always a complimentary meet and greet. No risk, no obligation, and then you can really set your team member for success in connecting with the caller. Let's listen to another one.
Thank you for calling Dr.
Practice name withheld.
This is Kathy. How can I help you? Hi, Kathy. My name is
Name withheld.
I'm relatively new to town, and I'm looking for a dentist, and was told by a friend of mine that you have a special where I can do all my initial screening stuff and x-rays for free.
We do. You know what? It was a mailer, and it was a coupon, but I don't have a problem giving you that special.
Is that all right?
Absolutely. Who's your friend?
Name withheld.
I know she came in the other day.
She did. Now, is anything bothering you, Taylor?
You know, it's just been probably much too long since I went to the dentist. And I just need a cleaning and a good check over.
All right, well, sounds good. Let's see what we have.
All right. Well, I bet you were wondering at this point if I was going to give you any good examples. Well, there you go. I think this caller did a wonderful job of connecting with the caller. She had a great empathy, rapport. She used the words very nicely, but, you know, thank you for calling. And this is, how may I help you? And then she established rapport specifically by basically helping the caller, and I gave this example at a coaching session last week, and the person said, well, why didn't she just, you know, tell her she could have the offer right away? Because she said, well, you know, that was actually from the mailer. I said, well, you know, it actually made the offer seem more special, that this call handler, this team member, was going out of her way to give this person the offer, even though it was really given on a mailer and that it was supposed to be presented at time of treatment. She said, well, no problem. I'll be happy to do that for you. And then she said, is anything bothering you, Taylor? Note that she gets big extra credit because she actually used the caller's name. You would be, I don't know if you'd be surprised or not, but I'm always surprised at how frequently team members bother to ask the person's name and use it. I have heard coaches that are very big and excited when they are big on and excited about when the member gives their own name. I think that's basically table stakes as far as I'm concerned. You should always identify yourself when you answer the phone. And it's really pretty simple because you know your name. You just have to remember the first line of your greeting. Where it becomes a little bit more challenging is when you need to get and confirm the proper pronunciation and spelling of the caller's name. We're going to talk more about that, actually, so I won't go into it any further now. But I really like the way this caller connected with, this team member connected with this caller. And now it's on to enthusiasm. And we all know people like this. They're at a 10. We wish they had a volume control. Maybe we could turn them down a notch or two. But all kidding aside, on the telephone, it's most often the opposite condition which pertains. People are usually at a 7, and we'd like them at a 10. Right now, I'm communicating with you in a louder, more concise and articulate way than I probably would if you were sitting across the desk from me. And that's because, again, there's no visual component. And telephone communication isn't always that great. And therefore, we want to really recognize that we're kind of communicating through a straw versus a pipe. And it's nice to make it big. You're also, you know, you're on stage. We want to exude enthusiasm, that exchange of enthusiasm that Ford talked about, necessary to really successfully make a sale. Depends on it. By the way, for some of you, the word sale is probably a negatively charged word. And I will, for a moment, just to give you my definitions, I consider selling to be nothing more than communication with a purpose, or even more to the point, empowering people to make an informed decision. And the last time your spouse told you that they wanted to eat Italian and you convinced him to get Chinese, or her, you made a very effective sale. And we're always doing it all the time. And as long as we're ethical and moral and have the best interest of the person at heart, it's a skill that we should confidently master. Let's listen to this.
Thank you for calling.
Practice name withheld.
How may I help you?
Hi, Nancy. My name is Jane,
Name withheld.
and I am kind of looking for a new dentist.
Well, thank you for calling us, Jane.
You're welcome.
How did you hear about our office?
Well, I live down the street from you. Oh, okay. At the new location or our old location?
I don't know. I'm off Delaney, north near York House.
Okay, we did just move out of that location, about 4 miles down the pike a little bit. We're on Washington now, just
Address withheld.
color forwarded. That's where we are. We're in a brand new office. It's just beautiful. So
Okay, all right. Well, I'm investigating.
All right, that's pretty much what I wanted to just share of that call, was the enthusiasm. Can you hear it in her voice? She was really looking forward to picking up that. It's almost like I can't wait to hear who's calling because I want to talk to somebody because I like to connect with people. That was just pure enthusiasm. And specifically, she used the caller's name. Well, thank you for calling us, Jane, with a little laughter, and they had a little laugh together. I mean, you know, laughter is the best medicine. That's like a glue that binds people. They've already shared a moment together, and it was maybe 8 seconds from the beginning of the call. You distinguish that from a lot of calls where people say, dental office, hold, or, you know, somebody says, how much does a crown cost? We don't quote prices over the phone, or it's $1,600. And then, you know, the person hasn't even made a connection, so you're just talking at each other. That's what we want to really try to avoid. We're in a brand new office. It's just beautiful. Do you see how she turned a potential negative into a positive? This person actually was closer to the old office, but the call handler, the team member, was able to turn that around. Like, you know, you're going to be glad that you're not going into that dumpy old office that's right down the street from you. You get to visit this new palace that's only a mere 4 miles down the pike, as she said. So I've made the point. I'll make it again. I think Shakespeare said that the name is a person's name is the sweetest sound they will ever hear. And we really encourage you to get the name early in the call, not when it's time to make the appointment, because then you're just gathering information. And recognize what a powerful tool this is, an opportunity to make a friend, especially if the person calling is not from this country originally. English is not their first language. They have difficulty with pronunciation. Maybe they have an impediment. Just imagine, have some empathy for this person, and imagine going through life with a difficult to pronounce name when people refer to you as pal or sir or chief or buddy, because they don't even want to be bothered with attempting to get the correct spelling or pronunciation of your name. Now, often team members will say, yeah, but they're in a hurry, I don't want to waste their time. Trust me, when it comes to their name, they've got time. And if you say, I'm sorry, sir, I want to make sure, since we're just meeting, that I get the correct spelling and pronunciation of your name, and you can blame yourself. You can say, I think the connection maybe could be better. Could you please spell that for me? I mean, think about the impact that's going to make on this person. Again, 10, 15 seconds into the call, this is unlike most calls that they've ever had. And that's branding. That's marketing, as far as I'm concerned. You are connecting with them because you're showing them that you're better than they expected. So get the name, and you'll see why our ideal greeting, that should say TAFI Introduction, actually, is the second answer. Remember, they ask, what's the purpose of life, or why is the sky blue, or why am I not 8 feet tall? I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with? Boom, get the name, and if you don't get it, make sure you do before you move on. Do not pass go until you get the pronunciation and the spelling of the name. If you think I'm being nitpicking, try it. You'll see. This is another very powerful tool for communicating with people, and this is something that most people don't appreciate. And that's why we're going to talk about it, because this is what you're going to want on your way to becoming a master telephone communicator, a TAFI master. A is for attribute. An attribute is an inherent characteristic. That's all it is. People don't really care about attributes unless you translate them to a benefit, because a benefit is a good or helpful result or effect. It's basically telling them what's in it for me. And A without B is like the sound of one hand clapping. And that is a very good way to stop communication in its tracks. So we're going to go through a couple of exercises now to illustrate the power and value of translating attributes into benefits. So here would be an attribute. We offer a complimentary smile analysis. Now, you probably realize, too, that until you define smile analysis, it's not really even an attribute for the typical patient. What is it? It could mean anything. So a very nice way to translate attributes into benefits is to simply use the introduction we offer and what I call a word bridge, which is that means. We offer a complimentary smile analysis, which means you can visit our office without cost or obligation to see for yourself how we can help you receive the care you want and deserve, or how you can look with an even better smile. You obviously can modify this, but it's the structure I want to give you. It's the skeleton. I want you and your team to put the meat on these bones. Here's another attribute. We offer oral DNA testing. Okay, good, right? We offer oral DNA testing. That means that we can help identify bacteria that may cause gum disease and other systemic conditions in time to prevent them. We could save your life, possibly. Same thing with oral cancer. You know, we offer oral cancer detection. Chances are you don't have oral cancer, but wouldn't it be nice to know for sure? And thanks to this assessment, we can give you the peace of mind in knowing that you don't have oral cancer. Advanced hygiene assessment. It's your turn. All right. Basically, what does it mean? You offer an enhanced protocol. That's great. People won't care unless you explain to them what it means. You could even have an attribute that we offer blood pressure testing for all of our patients. You got to tell them why. And it's such a simple way to distinguish your practice as basically committed to oral systemic health. But you've got to translate that to something that they can say, oh, I see why you're doing that. I see how that would benefit me. Don't ever assume that they know. Likewise with dental sleep medicine. You can obviously, you can get you a good night's sleep. We prevent accidents, make you more productive. You just go on with the list of benefits. I think this is our last one, oral systemic care. This is a great one. We recognize and appreciate the link between oral and overall health, and it's important to us that we make available to our patients all the latest leading-edge protocols to help them lead a happier, healthier life, to prevent illness, to control and prevent dental decay and periodontal disease, and quite possibly save your life. And essentially, if you think about it, you can predict the kind of calls that you're going to get with pretty much 95 to 99% certainty. People aren't calling you to find out the price of snow tires or the weather or whether this dress makes them look fat or anything like that. You pretty much know why they're calling. So doesn't it make sense to practice just as you practice your procedures, so you're not trying it out for the first time when somebody comes in? Rehearse, practice, role play. Listen to the calls if you're utilizing a call tracking system like we're able to offer. Use that data, have fun with it, and watch your effectiveness skyrocket. And yeah, here are my definitions: empowering people to make a decision. And connecting with people means simply, again, adding more arrows to your communication quiver. Find common ground when you talk to somebody. Let them know that what your philanthropic interests are, other connections you have with the community, your commitment to oral systemic health. And then listen. We will talk about that soon, because you're just basically dropping pebbles in the pool, and you see which ones create the biggest ripples. If the people respond, and you'll only know if they're responding by aggressively listening, because people will give you signals. Sometimes silence is a signal, by the way, and I hope to remember to circle back on that one soon. But essentially, here's a plethora of opportunities for you to come up with great verbiage that you can pull out of your communications quiver when the situation is right. Have stories that you can honestly relate about your doctor, facilities, amenities, commitment to giving back, training team, unique approach to oral systemic care, and just let them have it. Do it with feeling, with enthusiasm. All right, this is probably the most fun part. Once you've established the building blocks and you understand how to establish rapport, convey empathy, exude enthusiasm, it's time to manage the call by asking the right questions in the right way at the right time and then listening for the response, because the caller will then tell you exactly what you need to know to convert them into an excited, solid patient appointment. Connecting with the caller requires that we be confident and that we ask questions. And that's because, as I've already mentioned, whoever asks the questions controls the call. And if you don't like the word control, which for some people is a negatively charged word, replace it with guide or manage. It's all the same, because we all like to be in control of that clicker. Just a quick word about being confident. I don't know you, who's, each of you. I know many of you. But sometimes when you talk to somebody who's attempting to convey an air of authority and they're making points and every statement they make sounds like a question, to me that doesn't suggest confidence and authority. So if you or anyone you know does that, gently bring it to their attention and help them perhaps work themselves out of that habit, because subconsciously, and I've heard this, you can see people on television, talking heads, people, noted authorities being interviewed. When they're uncomfortable, listen if their statements don't begin to sound like questions. It's pretty interesting. Well, when we talk about the art and science of questioning, it's important to understand the distinction between open-ended and closed-ended questions. An open-ended question is one that invites the respondent to elaborate. A closed-ended question is a question that really typically only requires a one-word answer, up, down, yes, no, today, tomorrow, I will, I won't. And our methodology is that when you begin a call, you begin with closed probes or closed-ended questions, and then once you gain permission, and that permission can be implicit or explicit, but you'll know from practice when you are comfortable asking an open-ended question, that's the time to go sort of on the fishing expedition, which is just inviting the caller to tell you what's important to them and why they're calling now. Because why now is really what you're getting at. And one of my coaching subjects today said, well, should we just ask them, well, why are you calling now? I said, no. You don't want to explicitly ask why now, but you can ask them in very oblique and respectful ways that they will tell you why now. And in certain contexts, you even could, well, why have you decided to call us now? But quite a bit of groundwork needs to be laid before you could ask a question in that way. And then when you're ready to schedule the appointment, you go back to closed-ended questions. And now we're going to return to the TAFI introduction, or ideal greeting. And with hope, it will resonate with all of you more. In other words, you'll get the why, so that you'll agree to modify your communications a little bit, which is what I promised I would hope to do. So here's our ideal greeting. Thank you for calling ADM, where we make the connection. This is Danny. How may I help you? Hi, I'd like to know how much your on-hold messaging is. I can help you with that. My name is Danny. May I ask who I'm speaking with? With whom am I speaking? They say who they are, and if you're a dental practice, you'd say, are you in any discomfort presently? And I sometimes do that too, because sometimes they're experiencing some kind of a practice pain point, but not really, not often. And then I ask, who may we thank for referring you to us? And then I ask, would you mind if I place you on hold for just a moment so I can get to my desk and give you my undivided attention, unless I happen to already be at my desk and able to give them my undivided attention, which is probably more likely for me than it is for you, just because of the business I am in. But I will often resort to the on-hold message and let people listen to that. These statements are in red because I wanted to point out to you that these are closed-ended questions, each and every one of them. The TAFI introduction very subtly but very effectively places you in control of the call by asking questions that the caller is comfortable asking. And that's critical. But it doesn't simply do that. It does more. And the reason it does more is because if you think about it, questions do not simply give you an opportunity to gain information. They also give you an opportunity to impart information. And in our case, the information is of an emotional nature, and that's exactly as it should be. When you ask someone, are you in any discomfort? Yes, the information we're getting is what kind of an appointment and how urgent is it. But the information that we are conveying is that we care about this caller. That's why I don't want to make the assumption. Somebody says, yeah, hi, I just got a mailer and I was just curious to know how much a cleaning is. Well, I can pretty much infer probably that they're not in pain, right? But I will nonetheless say, are you in any discomfort presently, Bill? Because it gives me an opportunity to show that I'm listening and that I have a heart. And that goes a really long way toward connecting with the caller. Likewise, when I say, who may we thank for referring you to us, I recommend you ask that even if he says he got a mailer, because his neighbor may have confirmed and invited him to call. But the information that we're getting, yes, we'd like to know if someone referred them so we can thank them. But the information that we really want to impart is that we're so confident in the quality of our care that you must have been referred by one of our many happy patients. That's the message, confidence. And then at that point, if you want to use the on-hold message tool, I invite you to. And there's a very important reason that even if you're not sure you need to, it's not always a bad idea depending on the caller. Sometimes somebody will call with a head of steam. They're busy. They want to know the price of a crown. They want to know if you're in their network. And you may be likewise busy. When you slow the pace of the communication down and you actually invite them or request that they'd mind being placed on hold for a moment, a phenomenon known as breaking state occurs. And that means that it's kind of like a timeout. Everyone sort of takes a chill pill and reboots, regroups. And then when you come back with the call, they've had a chance to listen to the on-hold message. They've calmed down a little bit, and then you can say, thank you so much for your patience. How can I help you today? And if you try it, you'll see. It really, really helps. So let's listen to this.
To help ensure you receive the highest possible level of care, this call is being recorded. Thank you for calling us. 6 miles back.
Practice name withheld.
This is Saraj. How can I help you?
Hi, I received a picture from you, and I was just curious, do you do bonding?
Yes, I believe so. Yes, you do.
Can you give me some kind of a ballpark figure of what that would run to get 10 teeth done?
Okay, you may ask a couple questions here. You received our brochure. Do you mean like one of the flyers?
It's just a flyer, right? I just got it from actually a family member.
Oh, okay, okay. And could I catch your name really quick?
Well, I'm just looking just for a brief kind of dollar figure. I'm just trying to do some pricing at this point.
Oh, I see. I understand. So bonding for about 10 teeth?
10 teeth, 5 in the front, 5 on the top, and 5 on the bottom. Just want to get some kind of an estimate.
Okay. Could I put you on hold for just a sec?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Sir, if you don't mind, is it okay if I give you a call back? I just want to double check with the doctor, and he's in the middle of giving a patient anesthetic right now. I can call you back in just a couple of minutes.
That's fine. You want me just to give you a buzz back?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, what is your name?
My name is Saraj.
Saraj, I'll just give you a call back like in half hour or something.
That sounds great. Please do give us a call back. I want to be able to help you out.
Very good. Thanks.
All right.
Okay, I thought that the greeting was pleasant. I think that this team member is very effusive, and unfortunately, I think you could tell by the way the call went that she really never had a chance to establish rapport or convey empathy, or much less exude enthusiasm, because who was in control of that call? Clearly, it was the caller, because the caller was asking the questions. And what's really unfortunate and ironic is that this practice is actually one of the top cosmetic practices in the city where they're located. This doctor actually lectures on bonding and cosmetic procedures, but the team member was just was ill-equipped to connect with the caller. And that's why I call this call failure to bond. Couldn't resist, sorry. Now, once you have permission, only then should you proceed to open-ended questions, as I meant, and here's how it could have gone. Bonding is certainly one way to achieve great cosmetic results. Would you mind if I ask you a few questions to help be sure we're giving you the information you need to make the right choice? Now, by the way, before that, she should have said, I can help you with that. My name is Mary. May I ask who I'm speaking with? Well, you already said you're going to help them. So even though he refused to give his name because she was clearly in a corner. It was almost like a boxing match, and she was on the ropes. And it was not very pleasant to listen to, but I share it because I think it illustrates an important point about how quickly you can lose control of a call and never know it. Can you imagine bonding 10 teeth? That's a pretty good case. They're not going to get it. You know, and then once she did connect, you could say, tell me what is it about your smile that you'd like to improve? Because, you know, bonding might be it, might not be it. There may be alternatives. Can you share what's kept you from addressing this until now? That's a way of asking why now, which, again, you've got to be really careful to ask that. You've got to have permission. Why do you feel now is the time to get this taken care of? Caller's name, which she didn't have. Once you've identified the want and the buying signals, people are ready. You'll know. They'll say, oh, that sounds good. I do want to talk about silence. Many times I'll listen to a call, and I can hear that the caller is getting warmed up. And the team member says something which resonates with the caller, and they go, oh, that's interesting. And then there's about 2 seconds of silence, which to the team member seems like 40 seconds, and they're very uncomfortable, and they blurt something out, which is really unfortunate because that person needed those few seconds to process, to have the space to come to their own conclusion that, yes, this is something I want. So don't be afraid of silence. Silence is golden. You've heard it before, and you'll hear it again. It truly is. So when you get those buying signals and you give people time to share those buying signals with you, that's time to close. And you go to close-ended questions. Will mornings or evenings be better for you? What form of payment will you want to use? Can we help you to process the benefits paperwork? See? Close, open, close. Don't open with open. Open with close. I know it's confusing, but just think close, open, close. It's a closed sandwich. And that takes us to the home stretch. We're just about there. The art and science of listening, which is critical. Listening and questioning are the lubricant that drive or that fuels effective communication. And when listening to your patients, or anyone for that matter, be sure that you listen fully and completely without distraction. This is, again, setting an environment that's conducive to this. If you're distracted, you cannot be fully present, and the quality of your communication will suffer. We are not capable of multitasking. Many of us pride ourselves on thinking that we do, and we do multitask, but we are programmed. Our brains have been proven to be wired to do one thing right at a time, to do one thing best at a time. So that's something to be aware of. And really concentrate on what the patient is saying. Sometimes people they think they're listening when really they're just waiting for an opportunity to say what's on their mind. And in like manner, often we will relate stories. Somebody tells us they're getting married and they're having a honeymoon in Topeka, and we tell them we had a honeymoon in Maui. We convince ourselves, well, I'm just connecting with them to share their happiness, but what you've done is that's not really sharing. That's called comparative reality, and often it diminishes the story or the sharing that the person is communicating to you. So I'm not saying never do it, but be aware that that's the possibility too, that we think we're connecting with someone when we're really sort of diminishing their story. Be sure you understand the facts, and it doesn't hurt to ask. You know, people, again, you know, it's not a race to the finish of the call. If someone gives you a lot of information, and if you're not true, even if you think you get it, it's always great to say, Mary, I just want to make sure, because this is so important, that I'm hearing you completely and correctly. Do you mind if I just confirm what I heard? You know, they're not going to say no. And it's no lose for you, because if you get it right, they're really impressed with your listening. And if you got it wrong, they're really impressed that you cared enough to confirm. Explore your patient's dissatisfaction with where they are now. Remember, somebody calls and says, are you in my insurance plan? They didn't just wake up one day and say, you know what, it's been really bothering me. I want to know if this practice is on my plan. In other words, that's a reason that they're calling now. Well, that's not the reason they're calling now. Your goal is to uncover the reason that they're calling now, because they have a dental need or interest, or they wouldn't be calling now. They didn't just decide that the curiosity about whether you were in their dental plan was overwhelming them, and that's why they called. So, in summary, we connect with callers by first selling with a great greeting, with the yes we can attitude, establishing rapport, conveying empathy, exuding enthusiasm, avoiding the self-fulfilling prophecy, using positive and avoiding negatively charged words, using the close, open, close questioning paradigm, and all the while remembering to translate those attributes to benefits that matter to the caller, and listen for the want. Employ aggressive listening technique to hear what's important to the caller. Only then do you move to the qualifying stage, where you collect and confirm details, such as fees or insurance questions, which is not to say that you ignore the question if it's asked early. I will address that now. If somebody asks a question, the worst thing you can do is ignore it. It's like saying, don't think about a pink elephant while I tell you about how great it is to connect with callers. You can't think about anything but a pink elephant. So what we recommend is that you address it immediately. And you say, yeah, that's important, and I'll show you some verbiage here, and get it out of the way. So they know they've been heard. You know, they called about insurance. You're going to have your benefits coordinator investigate that. Do you have your insurance card? Can I get that information, please? Because I know that's important. And I want you to know that we work hard not to let affordability get between our patients and the care that they want and deserve. And that's why we have a full-time benefits coordinator whose job is to ensure that we maximize all the benefits to which you're entitled. Now, what's on your mind today? You just move it out of the way temporarily and find out why the person is calling. And here's some verbiage. That's why and obviously this is out of context. You had to go through the TAFI introduction, connect emotionally, and then when you get to the closing phase, you can say that's why we make it easy for you to experience for yourself if we are the practice for you by offering a complimentary meet and greet, or whatever your policy is. All financial considerations are shared in advance of any treatment, because we never let affordability get between you and the care you want and deserve. Sounds familiar? So does this. Now, if you're pressed, you can always offer a range. And if you're offering a complimentary meet and greet, it's always great. Somebody says, you know, but I really need to know the price of a crown. Oh, you know, crowns are the doctor's specialty. This is actually kind of blends into the triad close, as I call it. This is the dazzle them with data approach. We love to do crowns. They're a wonderful service that we offer. The doctor is trained extensively on it. Do you have a few minutes so I can kind of give you the options? Sure. Okay, well, there's this crown. This one is a little bit more less affordable, but it's very convenient. It gets done very quickly. This crown takes a little bit longer, but it's more affordable. And, you know, we have many options and alternatives. And, you know, I'm not the dentist, and I wouldn't presume to try to diagnose your condition over the phone. In fact, the dentist couldn't do that. That's why we offer you a complimentary meet and greet, so that you can come in and meet with the doctor. He can examine you and either confirm what you're thinking or maybe offer you some options that you maybe hadn't considered. So, you know, you give them the information, and then you give them that. And in most cases, it's like, well, why wouldn't they come in? You know, you've answered their question, but you really can't tell them exactly what you're going to do, which happens to be the truth, doesn't it? Can you with 100% certainty quote a price for any procedure over the phone without an examination? Of course not. So really, you just kind of explain to them why you do what you do. It's not our way or the highway. We do it this way to benefit you, caller. And most people will appreciate that because, again, it happens to be true. This is more than a pet peeve of mine, I think, but, you know, they say smartphones make dumb people, and I think that's true. But, you know, you should, and this goes to having predictable scenarios. If people rely on public transportation to get to you, or if people drive to get to you, people will call and ask for directions. And in general, men like north, south, east, west directions more than women. That's a generalization. But it's important to kind of know your north from your south in most cases. Now, there's some areas of the country where it doesn't matter. I didn't realize this, but I moved, like, I visited the West Coast, and I was like San Diego on the coast, and I was asking, well, is it north or east there? People, I have no idea. And I thought, well, why not? The ocean's to the west and the land's to the east and the north. Well, it's not. It's a fractal, you know. It's a very curvy coastline. So if nobody ever asks that question, then don't be prepared to answer it. But in general, just this is another opportunity to exceed people's expectations if you can drive them home to your office from where they are. Your call. So just to summarize, the TAFI Introduction connects you to your caller by establishing rapport, conveying empathy, exuding enthusiasm, proper questioning, effective listening, and all of which leads to effective call management. So this is our final review of the TAFI Introduction. And by now, I hope that you all agree that this is not a random collection of words, and that the order that we put them and the manner in which you ask them is critically important to connecting with your caller and will make your lives a lot simpler when you master it. In terms of what's next, we do want you to recognize that as good as a job as I hope you think I've done, this will not transform anybody's communications. Anything requires practice and coaching. We will be sending you a recording of this call. I hope that you will review it frequently. And for those of you who want a little bit more personal attention, we do offer a TAFI service which consists of 5 phases, which can be implemented over as long as a year or as short as 6 months. We have a collection of 2 CDs that Bill Blatchford and myself created, 2 hours of sharing distinctions and also recordings that we invite you to evaluate by completing the workbook that accompanies the CDs. We also give you access to our members-only blog, where, among other things, I present a call of the month, where we listen to a real-life call, we genericize it, we ask you to evaluate it yourselves, and then look at our evaluations, so that you can basically learn to self-coach. In the second phase, we have a team meeting that can be on-site or via GoToMeeting. The third phase, we really hammer in or focus in on mastering the TAFI Introduction. We will not elaborate and go into extensive role plays until each team member has mastered the TAFI Introduction, because otherwise it's just too hard to dig out of that hole. And that goes back to what I said at the beginning. It's like building the 4th floor of your house before we lay the foundation. So we're going to make sure that you're all TAFI Introduction masters, and then move on to the role play and emphasizing the caller's feedback, and then individual coaching on specific calls. Because the coaching service does include not only call recording if you want it, but we will also evaluate and give you a baseline of what percentage of calls that you're receiving from prospective patients your team is converting into appointments, and we will also evaluate each team member's baseline. It's like a batting average. And then throughout the season, as you're getting coaching, we will watch that batting average rise. So it's a really gratifying and tangible measure of the benefit and growth. And as I mentioned earlier, that just a couple percentage points of increase, just like in baseball, makes a big difference on the scoreboard, the financial scoreboard. So those are the phases. And if you want to learn about it, you can go to theartoffirstimpressions.com or Practice Perfection. Just you have to click a few more keystrokes to get to it. This is the most direct way. And if you do that, we'll get to the offer in a second. I did want to mention, too, that we also offer a service called Make the Call, where if you're interested in growing your professional referral network, we can coach you and your team on how to reach out to people. Instead of waiting for your phone to ring, we can actually help you with making the call and connecting with additions to your network. In terms of learning more about either the product, which is just the CDs, or the service, which is the entire coaching, you can go to theartoffirstimpressions.com and click on the store button indicated there. And just remember to jot down the promo code, and this is all uppercase, TAFI, T-A-F-I 250, and you'll receive $250 off either product. And I think that is about it. Now, Virginia, I imagine we have some questions. I know we're running a little bit late, but let's see how many we can get to.
We do have a couple of questions, and the first one is, how long before my team and I should expect results?
Great question. The answer depends on you and your team. It really doesn't depend on much more than that. The first gains will be greatest if your team masters the TAFI introduction. If they get and use the caller's name early, if they establish rapport, convey empathy, and exude enthusiasm, you are off and running. It really depends on how frequently you're willing to meet with the team. This will not happen by itself. You know, if we do the session and then you leave people on their own and say, okay, you know, good luck, we'll evaluate your progress, you probably won't see much, because it's like giving people an incentive but not giving them the map or the tools to reach the incentive. I recommend initially that you meet, if you have a weekly team meeting, that you devote at least 15 minutes of the meeting every week for the first 8 weeks to this. Just mastering the TAFI introduction, then doing role plays, and then listening to calls, actual real-life calls, and then letting the person who answered the phone self-evaluate. We're always our own worst critic, so it's a good idea to let the person evaluate. It also gives them a chance to practice their own powers of observation and analysis, and most important, it gives everyone else a chance to support him or her and say, you know, that may be true, but you didn't comment on the fact that you did this, and I really liked hearing that. So, you know, 8 weeks, you could double. You could double the percentage that you're closing people in 8 weeks, unless it's above 50% now.
Okay, we have another question. It's, should I always place a caller on hold?
Yeah, that's an often asked question. No, not always. I think I mentioned even, if someone calls and says, hi, I'm ready to make an appointment, I'm in a hurry, and you are able to give them your undivided attention, fine. But the on-hold message is a wonderful resource you can resort to in most cases where you're busy, you've gone through the TAFI introduction, and you could use a breather. You could use a change of scenery. With your cordless headset, you say, would you mind if I place you on hold for just a moment so that I can get to a quiet area and give you my undivided attention? They will almost always say yes. If they say no, then don't. Say, all right, well, you know, I'm checking out a patient right now. Let me just jot down your name and number. Can I call you back in a couple of minutes? Sure. Every once in a while, you're going to get someone that just doesn't cooperate. But, and Bill says this in his coaching, Bill Blatchford, we should always be aware and on guard against setting policy on the exception rather than the rule. So I would say the rule is to place them on hold if they're a prospective patient and you would benefit from placing them on hold.
And then finally, where can I get a cordless headset?
Okay, I'd mentioned that, and I'll say it again. There are 3 resources of which I can confidently refer. They are Mallory headsets, M-A-L-L-O-R-Y, headsets.com. I believe it's plantronics.com and hellodirect.com. They're all very good. You should expect to spend, I wouldn't go cheap, but none of them are that expensive. For $200, you can get an excellent headset that will last 3 hours without a charge and will go 300 feet from its base.
Wonderful. Well, that is it for the questions for now.
Very good, because I see we are pretty much out of time. Anyway, I appreciate everybody hanging on for the extra time, and we will send you the information. By next week, you'll have an email with instructions on how to receive your CE credit. And please be sure to mark your calendars for our next webcast, which we will be taking a break in October. Our next webcast will be in November, specifically on Thursday, November 20th at 7 p.m. Central Time. Our special guest at that time will be Bob Schulhoff, who is going to present on connecting the dental medical dots, a roadmap for ethically presenting perio treatment as a medical necessity. I know Bob. He's a terrific speaker, and he's remarkably talented at making the complex simple, which is especially notable from a literal rocket scientist. Bob actually worked on the Lunar Explorer project in the 1960s. So I think you're going to really enjoy it, and please be sure to mark your calendars. You will receive an invitation to register to that soon. Until then, this is Danny Bobrow, thanking you for your continued commitment to practice perfection and for listening to me this past hour and a half. Goodbye, everybody.